The word slipped out like a rogue spark from a fire, igniting something I couldn't smother. Honey. I said it, soft and unthinking, as Mia handed me the coffee mug, her fingers brushing mine in that fleeting electric way. Her eyes, dark, endless like a forest at dusk, widened for a split second before a grin curled her lips. Now 3 weeks later she won't let it go. Every honey she tosses back at me is a jab, a tease, a question I'm too scared to answer. But the real problem? I'm starting to like it. And that terrifies me. Lena Carter, 28, graphic designer, perpetual overthinker, sat in her Seattle apartment, the rain drumming a steady beat against the window. The city smelled of wet pavement and pine, a scent that clung to her denim jacket as she stared at her sketchpad, pencil frozen mid-stroke. Her phone buzzed, Mia's name lighting up the screen. Hey honey, you free tonight? The word hit like a pulse, quickening her breath. She could hear Mia's voice in her head, low, playful, with that faint southern drawl she'd picked up from her Georgia-born mom, even though Mia was as Seattle as the Space Needle. Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart doing that stupid, skittering thing it always did when Mia texted. She typed, deleted, typed again. Maybe. You still at the school? Safe. Neutral. No honey. She tossed the phone onto the couch and sighed, the sound heavy in the quiet room. The sketchpad stared back, a half-finished logo for a local brewery. All sharp lines and no soul. Her mind wasn't on work, it was on Mia, on that accidental word, on the way it had shifted something between them like a fault line trembling before a quake. Mia Thompson, 27, high school English teacher, was everything Lena wasn't. Warm, open, fearless. She'd stride into a room and own it, her laugh a melody that could hush a storm. They'd met a year ago at a mutual friend's art gallery opening. Lena nursing a glass of cheap wine, Mia spilling hers while gesturing wildly about Whitman's poetry. They clicked, the kind of click you feel in your bones like a key turning in a lock. Friends. Best friends. Until that damn word slipped out, and now Lena was drowning in what-ifs. The coffee shop where it happened was their usual haunt, a cramped spot called Brew and Muse with mismatched chairs and the smell of roasted beans thick in the air. That morning the sun had broken through Seattle's eternal gray, painting the room gold. Mia had been late, as usual, her hair a wild cascade of black waves, her teacher's lanyard swinging as she rushed in. Sorry, grading papers, she'd said, sliding into the seat across from Lena, her knee brushing Lena's under the table. The touch was nothing new, but it sent a jolt through Lena anyway, sharp and warm. Here, Mia had said, passing Lena a mug, her fingers lingering a beat too long. And then it happened. Thanks, honey, Lena murmured, the word slipping out like it had always been there, waiting. Mia's eyes snapped to hers, a flicker of surprise, then delight. Honey, huh? She teased, leaning closer, her voice a velvet knife. Lena's face burned, her laugh a clumsy attempt to brush it off. But Mia latched onto it, and now every honey was a challenge, a dare to admit what Lena felt but couldn't say. Tonight, Mia wanted to meet at the Lantern, a dive bar with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played Springsteen or Nirvana. Lena stood, pacing her apartment, the rain's rhythm syncing with her pulse. She caught her reflection in the window, short brown hair, hazel eyes, a face that looked more tired than she felt. She was good at hiding, always had been. Growing up in a small Oregon town, she'd learned to keep her feelings locked tight, especially after her first crush on a girl at 16 ended in whispered gossip and a slammed locker. But Mia was different. Mia saw her, really saw her, and that was both thrilling and terrifying. The bar was a 20-minute walk, and Lena grabbed her jacket, the denim heavy with the city's damp chill. Her boots splashed through puddles, the neon glow of the lantern flickering in the distance. She could already hear Mia's laugh, picture her leaning against the bar, her flannel shirt rolled up to her elbows, her eyes catching the light like they held secrets. Lena's stomach twisted. What was this? A crush? Love? Or just Mia being Mia, turning a slip of the tongue into a game? The uncertainty was a blade, sharp and unrelenting. Inside, the bar smelled of beer and cedar, the air thick with the hum of conversation and the clink of glasses. Mia was there as expected, her back to the bar, one foot propped on a stool. She spotted Lena and grinned, waving her over. "Hey honey," she called, loud enough for heads to turn. Lena's cheeks burned, but she forced a smile weaving through the crowd. Mia's flannel was green tonight, her hair loose, and she smelled faintly of lavender and chalk dust, a teacher's perfume. "You're late," Mia said, handing Lena a beer, her fingers brushing Lena's knuckles. The touch lingered, deliberate. Lena swallowed, her throat tight. "Got caught up," she lied, taking a sip, the cold bitterness grounding her. Mia tilted her head, studying her, and Lena felt exposed, like Mia could see the chaos in her chest. "You okay?" Mia asked, softer now, her hand resting on Lena's arm. The warmth of her palm was a tether, pulling Lena closer to the edge of something she couldn't name. They talked, the conversation easy but charged, like static before a storm. Mia told a story about a student's essay on the Great Gatsby, her hands dancing as she spoke, her laugh a spark in the dim light. Lena listened, her eyes tracing the curve of Mia's jaw, the way her lips moved. Every honey Mia slipped in, casual teasing, felt like a pebble dropped in a still pond, ripples spreading through Lena's core. She wanted to say it back, to lean in, to close the distance. But fear held her back, a cold hand on her heart. By the time they stepped outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and heavy with the scent of wet asphalt. The streetlights cast long shadows, and Mia's arm brushed Lena's as they walked. "You've been quiet tonight," Mia said, her voice low, searching. Lena shrugged, her breath visible in the cold. "Just thinking." Mia stopped, turning to face her, her eyes catching the light. "About what, honey?" The word was softer now, less tease, more question. Lena's heart pounded, her mouth dry. She wanted to say it, everything, but the words stuck heavy as stone. Lena's boots scuffed the pavement, the sound sharp against the quiet night. Mia stood close, too close, her breath a faint cloud in the chilly Seattle air. The streetlight above them hummed, casting a halo around Mia's face, her dark eyes locked on Lena's. "Talk to me," Mia said, her voice a low murmur, like she was coaxing a secret from a locked box. Lena's chest tightened, the weight of unspoken words pressing against her ribs. She wanted to spill it all. How that accidental honey had cracked something open. How every tease from Mia felt like a hook in her heart. But fear was a thief stealing her voice. "I'm fine," Lena said, the lie brittle. She shoved her hands into her jacket pockets, fingers curling around her keys, the metal cold and grounding. Mia tilted her head, her lips parting like she was about to call Lena out, but then she sighed, a soft, frustrated sound that cut deeper than words. "You're not," Mia said, stepping closer, her sneakers brushing the toes of Lena's boots. "But I'll wait." The promise in her voice was a spark, dangerous and warm, and Lena's pulse stuttered. They walked on, the city alive around them. Car horns in the distance, the low hum of a bus, the faint smell of fried food from a late-night food truck. Mia's arm swung loosely, her fingers grazing Lena's every few steps. Each touch a question Lena wasn't ready to answer. They stopped at a crosswalk, the red hand blinking, and Mia turned, her face half lit by the neon glow of a nearby sign. "You know," she said, her voice playful but edged with something deeper. "You're cute when you're all broody, honey." Lena's laugh was a reflex, short and sharp, but it eased the knot in her chest. Back at Lena's apartment, the air smelled of coffee grounds and the faint cedar of her candle collection. Mia flopped onto the couch, kicking off her sneakers, her flannel shirt riding up to reveal a sliver of skin. Lena busied herself in the kitchen, filling a kettle, avoiding Mia's gaze. The clink of mugs was a distraction, but her hands shook slightly, betraying her. "Tea?" she asked, her voice too loud in the small space. Mia grinned, stretching like a cat. "Only if you call me honey again." Lena's face heated, and she turned away, the kettle's whistle a welcome interruption. They sat cross-legged on the couch, mugs steaming, the silence heavy with unspoken things. Mia sipped her tea, her eyes never leaving Lena's face. "You remember that night at the gallery?" she asked, her voice soft, like she was pulling a memory from a fragile place. Lena nodded, her throat tight. She remembered everything. Mia's wine-stained shirt, her laugh, the way she'd leaned close to whisper about a painting, her breath warm against Lena's ear. "That was the first time I thought you might be trouble," Mia said, her smile crooked, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "Trouble?" Lena echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia leaned forward, her knee brushing Lena's, the contact sending a shiver through her. "Yeah," Mia said, her eyes glinting. "The kind that makes you feel too much." The words hung between them, heavy as the rain-soaked air outside. Lena's heart pounded, her fingers tightening around her mug. She wanted to lean in to close the gap, but the fear was there, cold and unyielding, whispering memories of rejection, of small-town whispers, of a heart bruised too many times. Mia set her mug down, the clink loud in the quiet. "Lena," she said, her voice steady, "why'd you call me honey?" The question was a blade, sharp and direct, cutting through the haze. Lena's breath caught, her mind scrambling for an answer that wasn't a lie. "It just slipped out," she said, her voice small. Mia's eyes softened, but there was a challenge in them too. "Did it?" she asked, leaning closer, her lavender scent filling the space between them. "Because you've been weird ever since, honey." The word was a tease, but her tone was gentle, searching. Lena's laugh was shaky, her hands trembling as she set her mug down. "You're relentless," she said, trying to keep it light, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Mia's hand found hers, warm and steady, and Lena froze, every nerve alight. "Maybe I am," Mia said, her thumb brushing Lena's knuckles, slow and deliberate. "But only because I think you're worth it." The words were a punch, stealing Lena's breath. She looked at Mia, really looked at her. The curve of her lips, the warmth in her eyes, the way she seemed to see straight through Lena's walls. The room felt smaller, the air charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Lena's heart was a drum, loud and insistent, drowning out the fear. She wanted to say it, "I called you honey because it felt right, because you feel like home," but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she squeezed Mia's hand, her fingers trembling, and Mia squeezed back, her smile soft but knowing. "You don't have to say it," Mia whispered, her voice a lifeline. "Not yet." But the way she said it, the way her eyes held Lena's, felt like a promise of something bigger, something Lena wasn't sure she was brave enough to claim. They stayed like that, hands linked, the silence stretching, heavy with possibility. Outside, the rain started again, a soft patter against the window, like the city itself was holding its breath. Lena's mind raced, replaying every honey, every touch, every look. She thought of her past, the girls she'd loved in secret, the ones who'd turned away, the ones who'd never known. Mia was different, but that only made it scarier. What if she said it, "I love you," and it broke everything? What if Mia's teasing was just that, a game, and Lena was reading too much into it? Mia stood, breaking the moment, her hand slipping from Lena's. "I should go," she said, her voice light but her eyes heavy. "Early class tomorrow." Lena nodded, her throat tight, and walked her to the door. The air smelled of rain and lavender, and Mia paused, her hand on the doorknob. "Hey," she said, turning back, her smile soft. "Call me honey again sometime, okay?" Lena's laugh was a release, shaky but real. "Maybe," she said, her voice barely steady. Mia winked, then stepped into the night, leaving Lena with the echo of her words and the weight of what she hadn't said. The next morning, Lena woke to the smell of rain-soaked earth seeping through her cracked window. Her apartment was quiet, save for the faint drip of a leaky faucet in the kitchen. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Mia's words replaying like a song stuck on repeat. "I think you're worth it." Her chest ached, a mix of hope and dread, like standing on a cliff's edge, unsure if she'd fall or fly. She rolled over, grabbing her phone. No new text from Mia. The absence felt like a bruise. Lena dragged herself to the coffee shop, brew and muse, her sketchpad tucked under her arm. The bell above the door jingled, and the familiar scent of roasted beans hit her, grounding but not enough to shake the fog in her head. She ordered a latte, the barista's chatter a distant hum, and found their usual table by the window. The chair across from her was empty, Mia's absence loud in the clatter of cups and soft indie music. Lena opened her sketchpad, but her pencil hovered useless. All she could see was Mia's smile, the way her hand had felt in hers last night. Her phone buzzed and her heart leapt, but it was just a work email. A client nitpicking her logo design. She sighed, the sound swallowed by the cafe's noise, and started sketching absent-mindedly, sharp lines forming Mia's profile. The curve of her jaw, the sweep of her hair. The drawing was too honest, too raw, and Lena snapped the sketchpad shut, her cheeks warm. She sipped her latte, the foam clinging to her lip, and tried to focus on anything else. But Mia was everywhere. In the lavender scent lingering on her jacket, in the echo of honey that wouldn't leave her alone. By noon, Mia texted, "Lunch? I'm starving, honey." Lena's lips twitched, a reluctant smile breaking through. She typed back, "Only if you stop with the honey." Mia's reply was instant. "No deal, honey." Lena laughed, the sound startling her in the quiet cafe. She packed up, her boots heavy on the worn wooden floor, and headed to the diner Mia loved. A retro spot with red vinyl booths and the smell of bacon grease thick in the air. Mia was already there, her flannel swapped for a soft gray sweater, her hair tied back, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She waved Lena over, her smile bright but with a flicker of something else, nervousness maybe? Lena slid into the booth, the vinyl squeaking under her jeans. "You're early for once," she said, trying to keep it light. Mia grinned, but her eyes were serious, searching. "Had to beat you here, honey," she said, the words soft, almost tender. Lena's stomach flipped, and she hid behind her menu, the words blurring. They ordered burgers for Mia, a salad for Lena, though she barely tasted it. The diner hummed with life. The clink of plates, the low murmur of conversation, the sizzle of the grill. Mia leaned forward, her elbows on the table, her fingers toying with a straw wrapper. "So," she said, her voice casual but deliberate, "you gonna tell me what's going on in that head of yours?" Lena's fork paused midair. A piece of lettuce dangling. She set it down, her throat tight. "Nothing's going on," she said, the lie flimsy even to her ears. Mia's laugh was soft, more exhale than sound. "Lena, you're a terrible liar." She reached across the table, her hand hovering near Lena's, not quite touching. The air between them crackled, heavy with unspoken things. Lena's heart raced, her mind a tangle of fear and want. She thought of last night, of Mia's hand in hers, of the way her own silence had felt like betrayal. Lena started, her voice cracking. She took a breath, the diner's warmth pressing against her. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" Mia asked, her voice gentle but firm, like she was holding space for Lena to step into. Lena's eyes flicked to Mia's, then away, landing on the window where rain streaked the glass. "This," she said, gesturing vaguely between them. "You. Me. The honey thing." Her face burned, and she cursed herself for sounding so small. Mia's hand closed the distance, her fingers curling around Lena's, warm and steady. "Lena," she said, her voice low, "it's okay to feel something." The words hit like a wave, pulling Lena under. She wanted to believe them, wanted to lean into Mia's touch, but the fear was there, sharp and familiar. She thought of her teenage years, the girl who'd laughed off her confession, the whispers in the school halls. She thought of her parents, their polite silence when she'd come out, their love conditional on her keeping it quiet. Mia was different, but what if she wasn't? What if this, whatever it was, ended in heartbreak? Mia's thumb brushed Lena's knuckles, a slow grounding motion. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, her eyes locked on Lena's, unyielding. "But you gotta meet me halfway." Lena's breath hitched, her free hand gripping the edge of the table, the wood cool under her palm. She wanted to say it. "I'm scared but I want you," but the words stuck heavy as stone. Instead she nodded, her eyes stinging, and Mia's smile was a lifeline, soft and sure. They finished lunch, the conversation lighter but still charged, like the air after a lightning strike. Mia paid, waving off Lena's protest, and they stepped outside, the rain a fine mist now, clinging to their hair. Mia's arm brushed Lena's as they walked, the city alive around them, Cars hissing on wet pavement, the distant wail of a siren, the smell of damp concrete. "Come to my place tonight," Mia said. Not a question but an invitation, her voice warm with possibility. Lena's heart thudded, but she nodded, the word okay barely audible. Back at her apartment, Lena paced, her boots scuffing the hardwood. Her sketchpad lay open, Mia's face staring back, all sharp lines and soft shadows. She traced the drawing with her finger, her chest tight. She wanted this, wanted Mia, but the fear was a shadow, cold and persistent. She thought of Mia's hand in hers, the way her laugh filled a room, the way honey felt like a promise. She grabbed her jacket, the denim heavy with rain, and headed to Mia's, her heart a drumbeat, loud and unsteady. Mia's apartment smelled of lavender and old books, the air warm with the faint hum of a radiator. The living room was a cozy chaos, stacks of novels on the coffee table, a half-finished crossword on the couch, a guitar leaning against the wall, its strings catching the soft glow of a floor lamp. Lena stood in the doorway, her boots still damp from the walk, her heart a frantic rhythm. Mia was in the kitchen, the clink of dishes mingling with the low strum of a folk playlist. "You made it, honey," she called, her voice light but with that teasing edge that made Lena's knees weak. "Stop that," Lena said, half laughing, shrugging off her jacket. She hung it on a hook by the door, the denim brushing against Mia's scarf, the scent of lavender stronger now. Mia appeared, a dish towel slung over her shoulder, her gray sweater slightly rumpled. "Stop what?" she asked, her grin wicked, her eyes dancing. Lena rolled her eyes, but her lips twitched, betraying her. She followed Mia to the couch, the cushions sinking under her weight, the room wrapping around her like a hug. Mia handed her a glass of wine, their fingers brushing, the contact brief but electric. "To accidental nicknames," Mia said, raising her glass, her voice warm with mischief. Lena clinked hers against it, the sound sharp in the quiet. "To you being annoying," she shot back, but her smile was real, softening the words. They sipped, the wine tart and cool, and Lena felt the tension in her shoulders ease just a little. Mia leaned back, her knee brushing Lena's, her gaze steady. "So," she said, "you gonna keep dodging me?" Lena's breath caught, the wine glass cold against her palm. "I'm not dodging," she said, but her voice was shaky, unconvincing. Mia's laugh was soft, more exhale than sound, and she set her glass down, turning to face Lena fully. "You are," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "And I get it. But I'm here, Lena. I'm right here." The words were a weight, pressing against Lena's chest, stirring the fear and the want that warred inside her. She thought of the first time she'd seen Mia, at that gallery opening, her energy like a flame in a dark room. She thought of the months since, the late-night talks, the shared coffees, the way Mia's laugh could pull her out of her own head. And she thought of the honey, the way it had slipped out raw and unfiltered, a truth she hadn't meant to speak. "I don't know what I'm doing," Lena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes fixed on the wine glass, the red liquid catching the light. Mia's hand found hers, warm and steady, her thumb tracing slow circles. "You don't have to," she said, her voice low like a secret shared in the dark. "Just feel it. Whatever it is." Lena's eyes flicked to Mia's, and there it was, the warmth, the certainty, the pull that made her heart ache. She wanted to lean in, to kiss her, to let the fear fall away. But the past was there, a shadow in the corner, whispering of rejection, of loss. The music shifted, a slow guitar riff filling the room, and Mia stood, tugging Lena up with her. "Dance with me," she said, not a question but a challenge, her smile soft but daring. Lena hesitated, her heart pounding, but Mia's hand was firm in hers, pulling her close. They swayed, awkward at first, the floor creaking under their feet. Mia's arms slid around Lena's waist, her body warm and solid, and Lena's hands found Mia's shoulders, her fingers curling into the soft fabric of her sweater. The room seemed to shrink, the world narrowing to the space between them, the lavender scent of Mia's hair, the faint hum of her breath. Lena's heart was a drum, loud and insistent, drowning out the fear. She rested her forehead against Mia's, their breaths mingling, the air charged with possibility. "Your trouble," Lena murmured, echoing Mia's words from last night, her voice thick with emotion. Mia's laugh was a vibration against her skin. "Good trouble," she whispered, her lips brushing Lena's ear, sending a shiver down her spine. They stopped moving, the music fading to background noise, and Mia pulled back just enough to meet Lena's eyes. "Lena," she said, her voice steady, "I'm not teasing anymore." The words were a spark, igniting something in Lena's chest. She opened her mouth but nothing came out, her throat tight with everything she wanted to say. Mia's hand cupped her cheek, her thumb brushing Lena's jaw, and the touch was a tether grounding her, pulling her closer to the edge. "I called you honey because," Lena started, her voice cracking, the words heavy with truth, "because it felt right." Mia's eyes softened, her smile small but radiant, like the first light after a storm. "It did," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Lena's heart surged and she leaned in, her lips brushing Mia's tentative testing. The kiss was soft at first, then deeper, a release of everything she'd held back. Mia's hands tightened on her waist, pulling her closer, and the world fell away, leaving only the warmth of her, the taste of wine, the sound of their breaths. They pulled apart, foreheads touching, both breathing hard. Lena's hands trembled but she felt alive, like she'd stepped into a new skin. "Honey," she whispered, the word deliberate now, a claim. Mia's laugh was a burst of joy, her eyes shining. "Took you long enough," she said, kissing Lena again, quick and sure. The room spun, the air thick with lavender and promise, and for the first time, Lena let herself believe this could be real. But as they sank back onto the couch, tangled together, the fear crept back, quieter now but still there. What if this was too much, too fast? What if Mia changed her mind? Lena pushed the thoughts down, focusing on Mia's hand in hers, the warmth of her smile. They talked late into the night, the conversation easy but charged, every touch a reminder of what they just crossed. When Mia fell asleep, her head on Lena's shoulder, Lena stayed awake, listening to the rain, her heart full but unsteady, wondering what came next. The morning light filtered through Mia's curtains, soft and gray, painting the room in muted tones. Lena lay on the couch, Mia's head still resting on her shoulder, her breathing slow and steady. The air smelled of lavender and the faint musk of sleep, and Lena's arm was numb, but she didn't move, afraid to break the moment. Her heart was a tangle, elation from last night's kiss, fear of what it meant, the weight of wanting something so fiercely it hurt. She traced Mia's hair with her eyes, the black waves spilling over her sweater, and felt a warmth she hadn't known she could. Mia stirred, her eyes fluttering open, and for a moment, they just looked at each other, the silence heavy with unspoken questions. "Morning, honey," Mia murmured, her voice thick with sleep, her smile lazy but warm. Lena's laugh was soft, a release of tension, and she pressed a kiss to Mia's forehead, the gesture small but bold. "Morning," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Mia stretched, her body shifting against Lena's, and the intimacy of it, the quiet, unhurried closeness, felt like a gift. They made breakfast together, the kitchen small and cluttered, the clink of pans and the sizzle of eggs filling the space. Mia hummed along to a song only she could hear, her hips swaying as she flipped pancakes, and Lena watched, her chest tight with something that felt like love but was too big to name. "You're staring," Mia said, glancing over her shoulder, her grin teasing. Lena blushed, caught, and busied herself with pouring coffee, the bitter scent grounding her. "You're distracting," she shot back, and Mia's laugh was a spark lighting up the room. They ate at the tiny kitchen table, knees brushing under the wood, the pancakes warm and sweet. Mia talked about her students, her voice animated, her hands gesturing wildly, syrup glistening on her fingers. Lena listened, her coffee cooling, her mind half on Mia's words, half on the memory of their kiss, the way it had felt like falling and landing all at once. She wanted to hold on to this, to bottle the warmth of Mia's laugh, the ease of this moment, but the fear was still there, a quiet hum beneath it all. After breakfast, they walked to the park, the air crisp, the ground damp from last night's rain. Seattle was waking up. Joggers in bright leggings, dogs chasing frisbees, the distant hum of traffic. Mia's hand found Lena's, their fingers lacing together. And the simple act felt monumental, like a declaration to the world. Lena's heart raced, her eyes scanning the park, half expecting judgment, but no one cared. A dog barked, a kid laughed, and Mia's thumb brushed her knuckles steady and sure. They sat on a bench, the wood cold through Lena's jeans, and Mia leaned against her, her head on Lena's shoulder. "This is nice," she said, her voice soft, the words carrying more weight than they should. Lena nodded, her throat tight. "Yeah," she said, her voice barely audible. She wanted to say more, to tell Mia how much this meant, how much she meant. But the words felt too big, too raw. Instead, she squeezed Mia's hand, hoping it said enough. The day unfolded slowly, each moment a thread weaving them closer. They wandered through a bookstore, Mia pulling novels from the shelves, reading passages aloud in dramatic voices, her laugh echoing in the quiet aisles. Lena bought her a poetry collection, the cover worn and soft, and Mia's eyes lit up, her fingers brushing Lena's as she took it. "For me, honey?" she teased, but her voice was warm, grateful. Lena's smile was shy, her heart full. Back at Mia's apartment, the afternoon light fading, they cooked dinner. Pasta with too much garlic, the kitchen filled with the sharp, warm scent. Mia danced around Lena, stealing bites of sauce, her laughter a melody. Lena felt lighter, the fear quieter now, drowned out by the ease of being with Mia. But as they ate, the plate steaming, Mia's eyes grew serious. "Lena," she said, setting her fork down, "where are we going with this?" The question hit like a stone, rippling through the warmth. Lena's fork froze, her heart stuttering. She wanted to say everywhere, wanted to promise forever. But the fear surged, cold and sharp. I don't know," she said, her voice small. Mia's face softened, but there was a flicker of hurt in her eyes, quickly hidden. "Okay," she said, her voice steady but quieter. "But I need you to figure it out. Because I'm all in, honey." The word was soft, a plea, and Lena's chest ached, the weight of her own indecision pressing down. They finished dinner in near silence, the clink of forks loud in the quiet. Lena's mind raced, replaying Mia's words, the hurt in her eyes. She thought of her past, the girls who'd left, the ones she'd never told. She thought of her parents, their disappointment a shadow she couldn't shake. And she thought of Mia, her warmth, her certainty, the way she made Lena feel seen. She wanted to be brave, to meet Mia halfway. But the fear was a wall, high and unyielding. Mia cleared the plates, her movements brisk, and Lena followed her to the kitchen, the air heavy. "I'm sorry," Lena said, her voice cracking. Mia turned, her eyes searching, and Lena stepped closer, her hands trembling. "I'm trying," she said, the words raw, honest. Mia's face softened, and she reached for Lena's hand, pulling her close. "I know," she whispered, her breath warm against Lena's cheek. "Just don't make me wait forever, okay?" They stood there, wrapped in each other, the kitchen quiet save for the hum of the fridge. Lena's heart was a storm, but Mia's arms were a shelter, and for the first time she let herself believe she could do this. Could love her, could say it, could mean it. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now, overshadowed by the warmth of Mia's touch, the promise of her smile. The next week was a blur of stolen moments and quiet fears. Lena and Mia fell into a rhythm. Coffee at Brew and Muse, late-night talks at Mia's, walks through Seattle's rain-slick streets, hands brushing, sometimes holding. Each touch was a spark, each honey from Mia a reminder of what Lena wanted but couldn't fully grasp. The city hummed around them, car horns, the chatter of crowds, the sharp scent of pine and damp pavement, but Lena's world had narrowed to Mia, to the question she hadn't answered. Where are we going with this? Lena's apartment felt emptier now, the silence louder when Mia wasn't there. She sat at her desk, her sketchpad open, but her pencil was still, the page blank. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mia. "Miss you, honey. Dinner tomorrow?" Lena's heart lifted, but the fear followed, a shadow she couldn't shake. She typed back, "Yeah, sounds good," her fingers hesitating before hitting send. She wanted to add more. "I miss you too," but the words felt too big, too vulnerable. At work, Lena was distracted, her designs lackluster, her clients frustrated. Her boss, a gruff woman with a penchant for blunt feedback, pulled her aside. "You okay, Carter?" she asked, her voice sharp but not unkind. Lena nodded, forcing a smile, but her mind was on Mia, on the way her laugh filled a room, the way her hand felt in Lena's, the way her eyes held a question Lena wasn't sure she could answer. "Just personal stuff," Lena said, the words vague, heavy. Her boss raised an eyebrow but let it go, and Lena returned to her desk, her chest tight. That night, Lena met Mia at the Lantern, the dive bar's familiar smell of beer and cedar wrapping around her. Mia was at the jukebox, her flannel rolled up to her elbows, her hair loose and catching the dim light. She turned, spotting Lena, and her smile was a beacon, pulling Lena through the crowd. "Hey, honey," Mia said, her voice warm, teasing but her eyes searching. Lena's laugh was shaky, her hands shoved into her pockets to hide their tremble. "Hey," she said, sliding onto a stool beside Mia. They ordered drinks, whiskey for Mia, beer for Lena, and talked, the conversation easy but edged with something unspoken. Mia's knee brushed Lena's under the bar, deliberate, and Lena's breath caught, her heart a frantic rhythm. "You've been quiet," Mia said, her voice low, her fingers toying with her glass. Lena shrugged, the beer bottle cold against her palm. "Just thinking," she said, the words a reflex, a shield. Mia's eyes narrowed, but she didn't push, just leaned closer, her shoulder brushing Lena's. The bar grew louder, the crowd rowdier, but Lena barely noticed. Her world narrowed to Mia's warmth, her lavender scent, the way her fingers grazed Lena's wrist. "Come home with me," Mia said, her voice soft but firm, not a question but a need. Lena's heart surged and she nodded, the word okay, barely audible over the music. They left, the night air sharp and cool, Mia's hand finding Lena's as they walked, their fingers lacing together like they belonged. At Mia's apartment, the air was warm, the radiator humming softly. They sank onto the couch, the cushions familiar now, the room a cocoon of lavender and lamplight. Mia's hand rested on Lena's knee, her touch steady, grounding. "Lena," she said, her voice serious, "I meant what I said. I'm all in. But I need to know where you stand." The words were a weight, pressing against Lena's chest, stirring the fear and the want that lived there. Lena's throat tightened, her hands trembling. She thought of her past, the girls she'd loved in silence, the ones who'd turned away. She thought of her parents, their disapproval a cold weight she'd carried for years. And she thought of Mia, her laugh, her warmth, the way she made Lena feel alive. "I'm scared," Lena admitted, her voice raw, the words spilling out like a confession. "I want this, want you, but I'm scared it'll fall apart." Mia's eyes softened, her hand squeezing Lena's. "I'm scared too," she said, her voice steady but honest. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." The words were a spark, igniting something in Lena's chest. She leaned in, her lips finding Mia's, the kiss deep and urgent, a release of everything she'd held back. Mia's hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and the world fell away, leaving only the warmth of her, the taste of whiskey, the sound of their breaths. They pulled apart, breathless, foreheads touching. "Honey," Lena whispered, the word deliberate, a vow. Mia's laugh was a burst of light, her eyes shining. "That's my girl," she said, kissing Lena again, soft and sure. They stayed like that, tangled together, the room quiet save for the hum of the radiator, the faint patter of rain outside. Lena's heart was still a storm, but it was quieter now, the fear overshadowed by the certainty of Mia's touch. The next morning they woke tangled on the couch, the light soft and gray. Mia's head was on Lena's chest, her breathing slow, and Lena felt a peace she hadn't known was possible. But as they sipped coffee, Mia's eyes grew serious again. "My parents are coming to town next week," she said, her voice careful. "They don't know about us." Lena's stomach dropped, the fear surging back. She knew Mia's parents were conservative, their love for Mia fierce but rigid. "What do we do?" Lena asked, her voice small. Mia's hand found hers, steady as ever. "We tell them," she said, her voice firm but soft. "Together." Lena's heart pounded, but she nodded. the weight of the decision settling over her. She wanted this, wanted Mia, wanted a future. But the path ahead felt like a tightrope, and she wasn't sure she was brave enough to walk it. The days before Mia's parents arrived were a tightrope walk, each moment stretched taut with anticipation. Lena and Mia spent every evening together, as if time could shield them from what was coming. They cooked dinners in Mia's cluttered kitchen, the air thick with garlic and laughter, and watched old movies on her couch, their legs tangled under a blanket. Each honey from Mia was a tether, pulling Lena closer, but the fear lingered, a cold current beneath the warmth. Lena's sketches grew bolder, her lines sharper, as if pouring her heart onto the page could quiet the storm in her chest. The night before the visit, they sat on Mia's balcony, the city sprawling below, its lights flickering like stars against the dark. The air smelled of rain and cedar, and Mia's hand rested on Lena's thigh, her touch warmed through the denim. "They're not like your parents," Mia said, her voice low, her eyes on the skyline. "They love me, but they don't get this." She gestured between them, her smile small, strained. Lena's heart clenched, her mind flashing to her own parents' silence, their polite rejection. "What if they hate me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mia turned, her eyes fierce. "They won't," she said, her hand squeezing Lena's. "And if they do, it's their loss, not ours." The words were a lifeline, but Lena's fear was a weight, heavy and unyielding. She leaned against Mia, her head on her shoulder, the city's hum a distant comfort. "I'm with you," Mia whispered, her breath warm against Lena's ear. And for a moment the fear receded, drowned out by the steady beat of Mia's heart. The morning of the visit, Lena woke in Mia's bed, the sheets smelling of lavender in them. Mia was already up, the sound of the shower a soft hiss in the background. Lena lay there, her heart racing, her mind replaying every worst-case scenario. Disapproval, rejection, Mia pulling away. She forced herself up, pulling on her jeans, her hands shaky as she tied her boots. The mirror showed a face pale with nerves, but she squared her shoulders, trying to borrow Mia's courage. Mia's parents arrived at noon, their rental car pulling up outside the apartment. Lena watched from the window, her stomach twisting as they stepped out. Mr. Thompson, tall and stern, his hair graying, and Mrs. Thompson, petite with Mia's dark eyes, her smile cautious. Mia greeted them at the door, her hug warm but quick, her voice bright but strained. "Mom, Dad, this is Lena," she said, her hand finding Lena's, squeezing hard. Lena forced a smile, her throat tight, and shook their hands, their grips firm but cool. Lunch was at a nearby diner, the air thick with the smell of fries and coffee. The conversation was polite. Mr. Thompson talked about his accounting firm, Mrs. Thompson about her garden club. But Lena felt the undercurrent, the way their eyes lingered on her and Mia's joined hands. Mia was fearless, her thumb brushing Lena's knuckles, her laugh loud and unapologetic, but Lena's heart pounded, her palms damp. "So Lena," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice measured, "you're a graphic designer?" The question was neutral, but Lena heard the judgment, the unspoken "and what else?" "Yeah," Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I work with local businesses mostly. Breweries, cafes." She glanced at Mia, who grinned, her eyes warm with pride. "She's amazing," Mia said, her hand squeezing Lena's under the table. "Her designs are everywhere in Seattle." Mr. Thompson nodded, but his smile was tight, and Lena's stomach churned, the fear whispering that she wasn't enough. The meal dragged, each bite heavy, the clink of cutlery loud in the tense silences. Mia carried the conversation, her voice bright, but Lena saw the strain in her eyes, the way her laugh didn't quite reach them. When Mrs. Thompson asked about Mia's teaching, Lena seized the chance to shift focus, praising Mia's passion, her way with students. Mia's hand found hers again, her touch a silent thank you, and for a moment Lena felt stronger, like she could face this. But then Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, his voice low. "Mia, we need to talk about this." He gestured vaguely, his eyes flicking to their joined hands. The air stilled, the diner's noise fading to a hum. Mia's grip tightened, her voice steady but sharp. "This is Lena," she said, her tone a challenge. She's my girlfriend. The word was a bomb, detonating the silence. Lena's heart stopped, her breath caught, the word girlfriend echoing in her chest, both terrifying and thrilling. Mrs. Thompson's face tightened, her lips a thin line. Mia, honey, she said, the word a cruel twist. We worry. This isn't what we expected for you. Lena's chest ached, the rejection familiar, cutting deep. Mia's laugh was bitter, her eyes flashing. What you expected, she said, her voice rising. This is who I am, Mom. And Lena's part of that. Mr. Thompson's hand landed on his wife's, a silent signal, but his eyes were on Lena, heavy with judgment. Lena wanted to shrink, to disappear, but Mia's hand anchored her, fierce and unyielding. I love her, Mia said, the words raw, unapologetic, and Lena's heart surged, the fear drowned out by the truth in Mia's voice. She squeezed Mia's hand, her voice barely a whisper. I love you too. The words were a leap, a fall, and Mia's eyes shone, her smile a beacon in the storm. The rest of the lunch was a blur. The Thompsons' voices clipped, their departure abrupt. Mia's shoulders slumped as they left, the weight of their disapproval heavy. Lena pulled her close, their foreheads touching, the diner's warmth wrapping around them. I'm sorry, Lena whispered, her voice thick. Mia shook her head, her eyes fierce. Don't be, she said. We're enough. And in that moment Lena believed her, the fear quieter, the love louder. The weeks after the visit were a delicate dance, the air between Lena and Mia charged with love but shadowed by the Thompsons' disapproval. They leaned into each other, their nights filled with soft touches and whispered honeys, each moment a rebellion against the weight of judgment. Lena's apartment became their sanctuary, the smell of coffee and cedar mingling with Mia's lavender, their laughter a shield against the world. But the fear lingered, quieter now, a whisper Lena could almost ignore. One evening they sat on Lena's couch, the rain a steady drum against the window. Mia's head was in Lena's lap, her fingers tracing patterns on Lena's thigh, the touch light but electric. I told my parents I'm not changing, Mia said, her voice soft but firm. They'll come around. Or they won't. But I'm done hiding. Lena's heart swelled, her hand brushing Mia's hair, the strands soft under her fingers. You're braver than me, she said, her voice thick with admiration. Mia sat up, her eyes locking on Lena's, intense and warm. You're brave too, she said, her hand cupping Lena's cheek. You're here with me. That's enough. Lena's eyes stung, the words sinking deep, healing old wounds. She thought of her own parents, their silence a wall she'd never breached, and wondered if she could be as bold as Mia, as unapologetic. I want to tell them, Lena said, the words surprising her, raw and true. Mia's smile was radiant, her kiss a promise. The call to Lena's parents was planned for a Sunday, the air crisp with autumn, the city golden under a rare clear sky. They sat at Lena's kitchen table, the phone between them, Mia's hand in hers steady and warm. Lena's heart pounded, her palms damp, but Mia's thumb brushed her knuckles, grounding her. The phone rang, each tone a hammer against Lena's nerves. Her mother's voice answered, polite but distant, and Lena's throat tightened, the words she'd rehearsed dissolving. Mom, it's me, Lena said, her voice shaky. I need to tell you something. She glanced at Mia, who nodded, her eyes fierce with encouragement. I'm in love. With Mia. She's my girlfriend. The silence on the other end was a weight, heavy and cold. Her mother's voice, when it came, was measured. Lena, we didn't know. Her father's voice joined, gruff, hesitant. Is this serious? Lena's heart ached, but Mia's hand squeezed hers and she found her voice. Yes, she said, steady now. It's everything. The call ended with promises to talk more. No warmth but no rejection either. A fragile bridge Lena wasn't sure she could cross. She set the phone down, her hands trembling, and Mia pulled her close, her arms a haven. You did it, Mia whispered, her breath warm against Lena's ear. Lena's laugh was shaky, her eyes wet. I did, she said, the words of victory, small but monumental. They sat there, wrapped in each other, the rain a soft song outside, the world quieter now. Months later they stood in Brew and Muse, the coffee shop where it all began, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans and memory. Mia's hand was in Lena's, their fingers laced, her smile bright as she ordered their usual. 2 lattes, please, she said, then leaned close, her voice a teasing whisper. Right, honey. Lena laughed, the sound free and light, and kissed her quick and sure, the word honey, a vow they both kept. The barista grinned, the regulars barely glanced, and the world felt right, like a puzzle finally complete. Lena's sketches were bolder now, her designs alive with color, her heart spilling onto the page. Mia's classroom was a haven for her students, her passion a light that drew Lena in, night after night. They built a life together, messy and perfect but theirs. The Thompsons called sometimes, their voices softer, not warm but trying, and Lena's parents sent a card. A small gesture that felt like a start. The fear was still there, a quiet echo, but it was no match for the love that filled their days, the honeys that became their language. One night under a sky heavy with stars they walked through the park, the air sharp with pine and promise. Mia stopped, pulling Lena close, her eyes shining. I love you, honey, she said, the words simple, true. Lena's heart soared, her smile wide. I love you too, she said, the word honey unspoken but there. In the warmth of their touch, the certainty of their future. They kissed, the world fading to the sound of their breaths, the feel of their hands, the truth of their love. A love that started with a slip of the tongue and became their everything.